BruHoop.com. It's not wrong to love our stuff. Seriously. Post-game breakdowns, alright? So guess what? This is the verse to liven you up and get you ready because it's Brew Hoop talking the Bucks. The Mike Dunleavy fan club started with us, trusting the two-man revolution too. Yep. You see, we tell you what's what and what's nothing but luck. Not fans of bad D or undisciplined Chucks. Don't get stuck spilling or muttering anything other than what Steve and Frank Madden come to pour in your cup. We're not the best thing to look at, but that's how it goes. I'll apologize now and just start the show. Those are our faces. Be nice. Let's go! Timberwolves 95, Bucks 85. Bucks lose on the road. It was a really grueling game. Bucks obviously don't even get to 90 points. But Larry Sanders gets a triple-double. That's awesome. 10 blocks, 12 rebounds, 10 points. He backloaded his points, spread his blocks out nicely, and kind of did well with the rebounds as well. So I think that's probably the headline for the Bucks because, we don't want to talk about a loss. But was that impressive to you? I know there's some Kareem that's involved, and there's some Drew Gooden. Can you tell me which is which?
I feel like Drew Gooden probably is a better person to bring up first. First off, I have a mustache. Let's just acknowledge that. I don't know how many times people have seen pictures of me. This is the second day this year that I've had a mustache. So you're welcome, I guess. This will not be here tomorrow. So, no, Drew Gooden, the last Buck to record a triple-double. So that discounts the value of triple-doubles, I guess. There you go. Just stop it. And to be more impressive name, Larry equaling Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's Bucks record with 10 blocked shots in a game. So congrats to Larry. It was a very much a back-to-basics Larry Sanders, I'd say. 6 blocks in his first 10 minutes, which is not normal. To be honest, I think he may have taken his first shot sort of midway through the second half on a Jennings threw up a kind of wild transition shot off the glass that Larry put back, and I remember looking at the box score, and I think that might have been his first shot of the game, and I thought, wow, he hasn't taken any shots, which is not a bad thing necessarily. Obviously, you'd like for Larry to get easy buckets, but he's been taking a lot of jump shots of lately, and as we kind of discussed, I think really in training camp, sort of the idea that a Larry Sanders that does less in many ways is a Larry Sanders that does more. So tonight we saw that, as you said, he kind of got some garbage buckets late. Did take one jump shot that he made in the late going, but for the most part, his length was tremendous. Obviously, the Love and Pekovic are not real vertical players down low. It's a great combination for the Timberwolves. They did really well on the boards tonight, but those guys did nothing inside in the second half. Pekovic had a really big first quarter of 12 points, and then didn't make a field goal the rest of the game. And I think Jim and John on the broadcast actually said that the Wolves had 20 points in the paint in the first half, and then they didn't get their first 2 in the paint until I think early in the fourth quarter. So, it just shows you how well the Timberwolves guards and perimeter players played in the second half, or how well enough they played, I guess, that even with basically nothing coming inside, they were able to still shoot the Wolves to a win. So Larry Sanders has the upside. Henson played pretty well early on with a few tip-ins, looked energetic, looked lost defensively a few times as well, but he played reasonably well. Had foul trouble, really didn't make much of a dent in the second half. But I'd say other than Larry and Henson, kind of Jennings scored a few late, but another ineffective shooting night from Montaigne Brandon. And when those guys aren't making it, and when Dunleavy and Tobias combined for 3 or 18 shooting, this is the kind of bad offensive night that you're just going to get. There's really not enough firepower to, especially without the 3-point shooters, to really make up for that.
Well, and I guess for anybody who's interested in the Larry Sanders triple-double, the blocks and the rebounds happened organically within the flow of play. were definitely earned. This was a double-double that was clearly earned, and a really impressive one at that. I mean, anytime you get 10 blocks, that's pretty awesome. But let me just take you through what happened near the end of the game, just so you kind of understand how he backloaded his 10 points into the final 2 minutes and 34 seconds. Sanders, he hit a couple jumpers late to kind of give him a shot at doing this, but the Bucks were down 11 points with 2.5 minutes left, and Sanders put in a couple quick buckets. Then, near the end of the game, there was some penetration into the lane, and Sanders was clearly calling for the ball, and Epe Udo stepped in front of him on an Ellis pass and put in a layup. The Bucks to put the Bucks down 94 to 83, so they were down 11 with 22 seconds left. And Sanders then fouled down 11 with 22 seconds left and sent Ridnour to the free throw line so that they'd get one more possession. And Jennings missed a jump shot. They didn't really feed Sanders, but Sanders was able to go in and get that last bucket on the last basket of the game. So that's essentially how he made his triple-double happen. It was kind of a scrape by on the points, which, I mean, I guess if you're evaluating Larry Sanders in terms of what he's going to do moving forward and what you'd like to see him continue to focus on, the fact that the points were the ones that you kind of fudged and weren't really organically part of this triple-double doesn't really bother me, but that's the truth of the matter. Probably shouldn't have been a triple-double, but he got the honor.
This wasn't Ricky Davis shooting on his own basket for to try to get rebounds or whatever he was doing. Yeah, this was a nice little thing for Larry to accomplish, feather in his cap. It was interesting. The Bucks bench. I mean, they lost the game. Obviously, pretty disappointing to lose this game the way they did. Kevin Love was clearly under the weather. Really struggled with the shot. Andre Kirilenko was out. Ricky Rubio hasn't played all season. I mean, this is a team on paper that you are eminently beatable, but Minnesota's played reasonably well, sort of for what they are, and the Bucks just kind of came out and kind of we saw a lot of what we've been seeing of late. Just pretty unimpressive offensive work. They didn't rebound well tonight. I mean, Minnesota out rebounded them, and they didn't defend the perimeter well, and Minnesota guards really bossed the game, I think, for long stretches. And I mean, that's kind of unfortunately what we see a lot of with the Bucks backcourt. But again, Minnesota didn't really make them pay per se all night, shooting 39%. But again, just consistency wise down the stretch, it's like every time the Bucks need a big basket, it's like Monte Ellis gravitate towards 22-foot jump shots when the Bucks really need a hoop, or am I just making that up? I don't know. But I feel like my cynicism toward Monte is only going to grow, so I apologize to everyone if I come across a little bitter or unable to enjoy the fun parts of Monte's game. But it's just another one of those nights which we've had too many of late.
So let me take you through the Bucks part of the box score, and then we'll go through the Wolves part of the box score, and that'll be the wrap-up for this quick game recap that we do, or we're going to try. One thing that does not appear in the box score that is probably the most troublesome is with 7:54 left in the fourth quarter, Beno Udre. He was moving into the lane, trying to get past Kevin Love. He stepped oddly on his left ankle, which then put strange weight on his right ankle, and he turned his right ankle, fell to the ground along the baseline, didn't want to be helped up by teammates, and they went to commercial break. They took an injury timeout, and then he was helped off the court. They had some x-rays back in the locker room that were negative, but he's going to be evaluated further. Clearly, he didn't want to stand on that ankle or that knee, the right ankle, right knee. So that could be a big problem for the Bucks going forward. We'll probably evaluate that further when we know more, but that's probably the other big story aside from Larry Sanders' triple-double.
Yeah, and I think the concern is with Beno. I mean, I was kind of thinking about this sort of after it happened, and I put on Twitter, one of the things you worry about is, I mean, realistically, the Bucks have two real point guards on their roster, right? It's Jennings and Udre, and this means more Monte Ellis at point guard. This means more Brandon Jennings, having to get more minutes, and replacing sort of Beno minutes with fatigued Jennings and Ellis minutes is not really something that I would consider a positive. Having both those guys having to play 40 minutes every night is not what I would consider a good thing. I think people might be obviously a bit more happy to the idea of Deron Lamb getting some additional burn. Lamb looked fine again tonight. Missed his only two threes, so sorry, Steve. Still stuck on two career 3 point. Still tied with John Henson for career all NBA competition 3 pointers with two.
Gosh, that's
Um,
weird. Yeah.
Very weird. But we'll probably see more Deron Lamb.
Mhm.
Marquise Harris is DNP tonight. Presumably, he would obviously also bump his minutes up just sort of by, um, kind of the domino theory of sort of all the minutes kind of between the sort of 2 and 3 guys having to also make up for Bano, who does play minutes with Jennings and Ellis in the backcourt. So not an ideal situation. And, I think with Bano, one of the things you really miss is he's a guy who just can get his shots. Somebody like Monte, for instance. I mean, Monte can be spectacular, but Monte forces a lot of shots. Bano doesn't really force a lot of shots. I mean, you did that analysis of him, his ability to get to that sort of in the paint, non-restricted area shot. He's got a very nice mid-range game that he can get pretty good looks at off pick and roll, and it just seems like he's a guy who frequently, when you kind of you need somebody in your second unit to get a bucket, you can kind of just get to a spot where you can get a good look and just knock down a 16-footer or whatever, and kind of just sort of give you that consistency where you're not going through these long droughts. And the Bucks had a couple of those long droughts tonight where just nothing was going down. Dunleavy 2 of 9 from the field, 1 of 5 from three. He's been obviously not playing as well as he did at the start of the season when he was fantastic. And when he's not shooting the ball really well, Ursano Silva, we'll talk about him in a minute. He did not play at all. And, Jennings was the only guy really from 3 point range who did much of anything. He was 3 of 6 and team 5 of 18. So, again, as you pointed out, Steve, in the beginning of the season, really the Bucks' lack of long distance shooting, combine that with the inability to get to the line. I mean, it's just very difficult for them to, be that consistent offensive team night in and night out because they are, so reliant on, Dunleavy especially being hot or Jennings being hot on any given night.
And as we look at the box score, one other thing that you're not really going to see, the numbers from Ellis and Jennings, obviously 14 of 41 overall is not the type of shooting that you'd want from your guards. But I think worse than that is the fact that they combined to go 5 of 21 in the second half. And some of the pace slowed down in that second half. And as we were just talking, Bano's kind of the half-court guy who can, run things a little more efficiently and get near those elbow areas and then kind of work into the paint. And Jennings and Ellis kind of move wherever they happen to move. And it kind of creates these weird situations where they just aren't even close to as effective as they should be when they're in half-court play. So that's another thing to watch, another thing that's a little bit troublesome. The other thing that's a bit troublesome to me, Tobias Harris, not a very good night. He had a rough night defensively in the last game. In this one, it was just Josh Howard was big enough to deny him for any of those type of post looks. They tried to toy around with that a little bit. A couple times where Harris couldn't get himself uncovered on the block. A couple other times where the guards didn't quite know when to toss the ball down, and one where they just threw it straight over his head out of bounds. But they really had trouble in that, starting unit finding ways to get Tobias good looks. He kind of had some bunnies that developed that he couldn't hit, but I'd still like to see him do a bit more with the reserve unit. I don't know if they're getting the most out of him right now.
Well, and Luke Bamute may be on the bench. Maybe, I don't know if he'll be active, but could be ready to play tomorrow, even Saturday against the Celtics.
Hey, hey.
Yeah, so we'll see. I don't expect Tobias to be, Luke to be playing 25, 30 minutes tomorrow or necessarily even next week. But it will be interesting to see if Luke does kind of worm his way into the rotation, how that'll impact Tobias's minutes. Could Tobias, lose his starting spot at some point? Given his struggles defensively, obviously that's certainly a possibility, especially if he's not doing as much as he has been on the offensive end.
So Bucks back down to 500. I don't know if you're sad. I'm not necessarily sad, but this was kind of going to be that tough week for him, and it's definitely worked out that way so far. So hopefully they can steal one along the way here and get a little bit back on track before the schedule lightens up a little bit. But we kind of termed this Hell Week before we started out, and it's been rough. If you'd agree with me on that, I'm sure you would. So
Yeah, it's been. I mean, and the probably the other funny thing is, I mean, the one game that they won here, they were down 27 points in, which I would guess the biggest deficit they faced during this hell week was in the one game they won. So just a weird week. Ursan has this game where he seems like he bounces back, and then Ursan plays minimally and doesn't do anything on Wednesday when he was apparently sick as well, and then tells Gary Wolfel that he's mad as hell and whatever.
do I have to go burn that podcast that we did that said he was turning it around, or what? What do I do with that?
No, I don't
Hide
think.
it?
Hey, I don't think we said he was gonna.
No,
Everything was gonna magically
no,
change. But
no. I said
I,
maybe. Yeah.
I was hoping that maybe that was the spark they needed. But I guess he was sick on Wednesday, and then tonight,
Jeez.
ironically, after sort of this, and I don't know how pissed off Ursan was, but 2 days after supposedly complaining about his lack of playing time because he's played so well before the Chicago game. Um, he doesn't play at all tonight in Minnesota. So that is certainly interesting. Obviously, Udo and Henson and clearly tonight Sanders have played well. No question, they've all been much better than Ursan on the whole for the season. But Ursan's the guy that I think we'd agree the Bucks are going to need him to do something if they're going to have a chance to make some noise this year. And they've gotten away without him so far, but I don't know. It's just kind of one of these things that could become a bit of a distraction if he's not playing at all. I mean, I think I joked about Skiles, Drew Goodening, Ursan Ilyasova, but tonight Ursan did dress, so he wasn't an actor, um, but that would be ironic. If I don't expect it to happen, but if Ursan were to, heaven forbid, be deactivated in favor of Drew Gooden, I think
Oh.
that would really tell you a lot about the state of the Bucks' depth slash chaotic rotations. So
So a 10-point loss is a 10-point loss. We kind of
in
warned
Minnesota,
you about this Hell Week beforehand. And I think if I had told anybody who follows the Bucks closely, that they'd be 7-7 through their first 14 games, frankly, that's pretty solid. I mean, it feels bad because they've backloaded the losses into this. They had a great start. What was it 5-2, 6-2 start,
yeah.
and that had everybody really excited. But 7-7 is not bad, and in the Eastern Conference right now, it is definitely not bad. So don't fire everybody yet, and bring your torches and pitchforks. It's all fine at the moment. 7-7. Don't get too down, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I think the negative trending part is it's not unimportant, I would say.
How about you have to pick a torch or a pitchfork? You can't have both at this point. You can't you only get one. You only get one to bring.
I'll take a torch just so I can see where I'm going.
Yeah, exactly. That sounds like a good idea. So there you have it. Again, Timberwolves 95, Bucks 85. Sorry about our faces. That's just how we look. Okay. See ya.